It is 2 a.m. The cabin is completely dark. Benute Bourget is upside down. 1 second he was sleeping. The next, the entire world flipped. The Atlantic Ocean hit his tiny rowboat with the force of a freight train. And now freezing water is pouring through the cracks of a hole that was never supposed to crack. The roar outside is deafening. The boat is not righting itself. It is not coming back up. He has maybe 60 seconds before this cabin becomes a coffin. 1,100 miles from the nearest coastline. No rescue helicopter in the world flies that far offshore. No one knows exactly where he is. And the ocean, the same ocean he has spent weeks learning to trust, is trying to swallow him whole. This is the moment every ocean rower fears, and almost never survives. This is what happened next. 3 weeks earlier, Benoît Bourguet was exactly where he wanted to be. He was 47 years old, Belgian, disciplined, a kind of athlete who doesn't talk about doing impossible things. He just does them. What he had set out to do was genuinely, objectively impossible for most human beings on Earth. Row across the Atlantic Ocean. Alone. 3,000 miles. No motor. No crew. Just him, his oars, an especially built single-man vessel called the City of Liverpool. The race is called the world's toughest row, and that name is not exaggeration. Competitors spend months preparing. The boats are engineered to self-right if capsized. Emergency beacons are tested and registered. Survival gear is packed with obsessive precision. Benute had done everything right. Out on the open ocean, life compresses into a brutal but manageable rhythm. Row 2 hours. Sleep 90 minutes. Eat. Repeat. The ocean becomes familiar. Swells stop feeling threatening. The isolation stops feeling lonely. That familiarity is exactly what makes the ocean so dangerous. Because just when you begin to believe you understand it, it reminds you that you don't. January 21st, 2026. Somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. The seas had been building all day. 13, 14, 15 feet. Nothing unusual for this part of the ocean in winter. Benute did exactly what experienced ocean rowers do in heavy weather. He sealed the hatches, strapped himself in, let the boat do its job. The City of Liverpool had survived conditions like this before. Then the first rogue wave hit. Not a big wave, not a storm surge. A rogue wave, a freak wall of water that forms without warning, without pattern, without any logic the ocean is willing to explain. It slammed the hull sideways. The boat lurched violently but started to recover, and then the second one hit. This one was massive. The impact was not a crash. It was an erasure. In one single motion, the City of Liverpool was gone, rolled completely upside down, hull facing the sky, cabin submerged. The self-righting mechanism that was supposed to save him never had a chance to engage. Inside the sealed cabin, everything that wasn't bolted down became a projectile. Water flooded through the fractured hull. The darkness was total. The cold was immediate and savage. Benute Bourget had seconds to decide whether he was going to live or die. Here is what separates survivors from victims. Survivors don't just react, they think. Panic, in cold water, burns oxygen and kills faster than the cold itself. Benute knew this. Instead of clawing blindly for the exit, forced himself to slow down for 3 critical seconds, long enough to locate the 2 devices that would determine whether anyone ever found him. His APIRB, his personal locator beacon. An EPIRB, emergency position indicating radio beacon, is a device that, when activated, sends a distress signal directly to a global satellite network. At approximately 2:04 a.m., that signal reached U.S. Coast Guard Sector San Juan, over 1,000 miles away. But Benute wasn't finished. He forced his way out of the flooding cabin, fought his way onto the overturned hull in gale force winds, and deployed his emergency life raft into the roaring darkness. And then, this is the decision that likely saved his life. He didn't get in and drift. He grabbed a tether line and tied the life raft directly to the overturned hull of the City of Liverpool. Think about what that decision meant. A life raft in open ocean is almost invisible. It sits low in the water, roughly the size of a dining table, and in 15-foot swells, it disappears completely between waves. But a 20-foot fiberglass hull that shows up on radar, that reflects light, that gives rescuers something to find. And there was a second reason. The overturned boat acted as a massive sea anchor, a dead weight that kept the raft from being hurled across the ocean by the wind. Without it, Benute could have been miles from his beacon signal by morning. In the middle of the worst night of his life, he turned wreckage into a survival system. But survival systems don't keep you warm. The hours that followed were a different kind of torture. The physical pain was constant, the relentless pitching of the waves, salt water soaking through every layer, the cold that doesn't announce itself but simply takes over degree by degree. His lips cracked, his hands stopped feeling like his hands. Sleep was impossible. Every time exhaustion pulled him under, the ocean lurched him awake. And then there was the silence inside his own mind, which was anything but silent. 1,100 miles offshore, beyond helicopter range, the perb he knew was unregistered, meaning the Coast Guard received a signal. But no name, no face, no record of who was out there dying. He didn't know if anyone was coming. He didn't know if anyone was even looking. Time stopped moving forward. It just repeated. Wave, crash, darkness. Wave, crash, darkness. This is where survival stories quietly end for most people. Not in a dramatic final moment, but in a slow, rational surrender. A point where the math stops adding up. Where the mind whispers that continuing is simply no longer logical. Benute heard that whisper, stayed tethered anyway. Back on land, the Coast Guard had done the only thing they could do from that distance, broadcast an emergency call to every commercial vessel within range. The Horten, a Norwegian oil tanker, 1,092 feet long, already hours away, already fighting through the same storm that had nearly killed Benute. Her crew diverted course immediately and plowed through the Atlantic for 12 straight hours. Benute didn't see her coming. He heard her first. A low mechanical hum that didn't belong to the ocean. He told himself not to trust it. The mind plays those tricks after enough hours alone. But the sound grew. And then, emerging from the darkness like something from another world entirely, the Horten appeared on the horizon. She was enormous, impossibly enormous, moving toward him. Even then, the ocean wasn't finished. The seas were still too violent to lower a rescue boat. The tanker's crew had one option. Maneuver a 1,092-foot steel ship close enough to a rubber in 15-foot swells to throw a life ring. They did it. Benoît Bourguet, dehydrated, hypothermic, exhausted beyond anything most humans will ever experience, reached out with what was left of his strength and grabbed it. 24 hours after the ocean tried to take him, he was pulled aboard. Alive. Didn't finish the race. The city of Liverpool was never recovered. The 3,000-mile crossing he had trained months for ended at the bottom of the Atlantic. But Benoît Bourguet walked off that tanker under his own power, which is the only finish line that mattered. The survival community noted what he had done right. The beacons, the tether, the discipline to think before reacting in a flooding upside-down cabin at 2 a.m. in the middle of the Atlantic. Small decisions, made in the worst seconds of his life. That is the only reason this story exists to be told. Out there, the ocean doesn't grade you on effort. It doesn't reward preparation. It doesn't care how long you trained or how carefully you packed your gear. It just keeps moving. And sometimes, if you're disciplined enough, and lucky enough, and stubborn enough, to stay tethered when everything is telling you to let go, it lets you come home.